pumps.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Okay.
Here we are. Here we go. Live with Alex Mashinsky. Banks are not your friends. And Charles Hoskinson. I mean, this is going to be a lot of craziness. So I am going to. People will start getting notifications and stuff here. It takes a little bit of time for everybody to get it, so there's no real rush. But I'm basically going to plant a seed, let you guys go at it, and interject whenever I can be helpful. But I do want to start by saying this. Ceslius Network just announced adding ADA Cardano to Ceslius Network in Q2 of 2021. Now, why is it going to take so damn long, Alex? Start.
Right. So as you know, first, Charles, congrats on Shelly and on all the launches, and you guys doing an amazing job. You guys have a killer community. I got to tell you, I mean, we have a strong community, but just how many times a day I've been asked about Cardano is just like nothing else, right? So it's not like we didn't want to add it. It was more about our custodians supporting it. Can we generate yield? And obviously, again, launching Shelly solves a lot of those issues. So it was more about you guys killing it, launching it right before the end of the year. So it's like that put the squash on any arguments from anybody. It was like, okay, now there's nothing to argue over. Anytime my Fireblocks or whoever else we're using or Prime Trust tells us, oh, whatever. I'm like, no, go finish the job. We want this thing live. So we're committed to Q2. If we can do it earlier, we'll do it earlier, and everybody will be able to earn yield. So basically, what we do is you earn the normal yield, and if we lend it out, you earn more yield on top of it. So we'll be hopefully yielding something that is more than just the staking rewards.
Yeah, it takes time for people to integrate things, and your community loves you, Alex. So I guess that's why they want ADA support, because we are the best. But anyway, levity aside, we rewrote everything with Shelly. We did the GraphQL interface, the REST APIs. We even have full Rosetta support now for Cardano. But it took about 6 months to get all that out there and get that done, get the code stable. So it doesn't surprise me that we see these types of integrations happening. There's a lot in the queue, and everybody was kind of waiting for Shelly to happen before they'd even look at it. And now it's here. It takes a little while to understand it. On our side, we do have an integration specialist team. So if you guys need any help at all, let us know, or let the Cardano Foundation know, and we can talk about how it all works and how the APIs work. And if you run into weird bugs or things like that with your framework, we'll be there, of course, to answer those questions. And we're glad to see you join the family.
Perfect. We'll definitely leverage those resources.
Well, that's all we have time for today, folks. So thank you for joining us.
It's been great.
That's it. The announcement is out.
Okay.
I got to tell a funny story, because this morning, I did my shower and this and that, and I went to my closet, and usually I wear a Celsius shirt, and today I put this shirt on. And it was for this interview in mind. I was thinking to myself, okay, what's kind of like the best shirt to put up there that is going to communicate this stuff. And the funniest thing is at 9:30 a.m. I had a pitch to one of the largest banks in the world. So I get on the call, completely mindless, and the guy on the other side is like looking at me and only then I realized that I'm wearing just the worst shirt possible.
Wow. That's
here we are.
That's amazing. But you know what? You're probably still going to get whatever you needed out of that situation, right, Alex, I'm sure.
We'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, welcome back to another episode of Alex Mashinsky Doesn't Give a Fuck.
Pretty much. It's not quite massaging cows live on air, but I tell you what, that little meme of Charles, that people were sending me that thing, and I had to share it on Twitter. It was so funny.
Oh man, yeah, it spread like wildfire. There's even a GIF now that's there. I have it on my phone. I'll send it to anybody who likes it.
Yeah, it was pretty good stuff.
Yeah, Charles took farming into a whole different level. Like we were talking about yield farming and this and that, and he's like, no, I got like 200 cattle head, and I got you
I'll
name
tell
it.
you a
What animal
story.
you
I'll tell you a
want?
story about these goddamn cows. Okay, so I was in Tokyo and I just gotten there from Korea, and I'm really, really tired. And my secretary and I were just going to get a steak and head off to bed. So I was staying at this nice hotel in Tokyo, and I went to the steakhouse underneath the hotel. We were the only people there, and menus in Japanese and everything like that. And we ordered some Kobe beef, and I just was gotten done being in Korea. So I was still living in won world, not yen world. And I saw this steak and it was 64,000 yen. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's like 1,000 yen to $1. And of course, that's the exchange rate of won, but my brain was not yet converted over. So I was like, $64 for a Kobe beef steak. That's amazing. So we'll take two of those, one for me, one for my secretary. And the bill comes in, and it comes out to be like basically 12,000 yen or something like that. And I'm just looking at that, and I'm like, wait a minute here, this can't be $1,200. This is not right. It's got to be 120, right? And so yeah, so they must be doing something right out in Japan with those cows, man. If they're going to charge $1,200 for a 2-steak dinner, it's a good steak though. Yeah, the Kobe out there is crazy expensive.
Right.
You can go.
We went on a family trip, so my wife booked it. We were going to, and she wanted to do the Grand Hyatt, that room in Lost in Translation.
Uh-huh.
And so they gave her a quote, and we show up, and there's like 7 people at the entrance. The minute I saw that 7 people, I knew I was in trouble. And I'm like, honey, how much do they charge you a night? And she's like, nothing. It's $2,400 a night, which is a lot of money. But I'm like, are you sure about that?
Not for Alex Mashinsky's wife, apparently, but that's okay. I understand.
No, it was a grand room with like, I don't know, 5 bedrooms. It was for the whole family, right? And I'm like, how much do they charge you in yen? And that was $24,000 a night. It wasn't
Oh my gosh.
Because she missed the zero on the yen, 100 yen versus whatever. Anyway, so
just had to shit all over my steak story, Alex.
Let's just flip them out, fellas, and see whose is bigger. What are we waiting for here?
Right. But you arrived in Narita at like 12 o'clock. You're in the hotel by 1:30 a.m., right? So I stayed in that room at 1:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. I had to leave the room because I downgraded to a real room that only cost a few $100s, But so I stayed in the most expensive hotel room in the world for only like 6 hours. That's it. That's what it.
Did you have to pay for the entire night, or what was the?
Yeah, no, are you kidding me? These guys, she booked it for like a week.
Oh no!
Yeah, I was lucky that they allowed me to what do you call it?
Prorate.
Yeah, so I am. People know in Japan who I am because I brought Voice of IP to Japan. They call me Alex.
You're the guy who spends $24,000 for a fucking hotel room. Of course they know.
No, I'm not that kind of guy. Definitely not. That was not it. But I gotta tell you, that was like definitely you'll learn your lesson. So
yeah.
So don't go to Asia. Is that what I'm hearing? Unless you have a guide and somebody to translate your bill.
Yeah,
it sounds a little dangerous because I don't have $24,000 on a card I can just plop down for a room, even by accident.
I mean, Jason, those decimal points always get you, especially when you're doing like a multi-country trip and you're about a month into it, and you don't think you're going to make this mistake, but you go to like 7 or 8 countries in a 3-week period. You're just totally exhausted. You're jet lagged as hell. You just can't do the math anymore.
Yeah.
Would I actually even fit anywhere in Asia? Because I've seen the apartments over there. They're like cigar boxes, right? They're like little studio cigar boxes everybody fits in.
Oh yeah, they'll put you in with the sumo.
The sumo.
Special sumo rooms. Yeah, exactly. But Charles, listen. If this Cardano thing doesn't work out, me and you growing some Kobe beef in Colorado anytime, right? We got plan B. So
we got a great partner, a beef chain that we work with. They're based up in Sundance, Wyoming, and they got a 10,000 acre ranch and 1,200 cattle, and we put all of them on the Cardano blockchain. And at some point, we're going to get every cow in America on that. So yeah, I'm game. We can do USD. It's USDA approved, by the way. It's the only USDA approved blockchain beef chain is. But yeah, there's some good money in cattle, and great money in the rodeos, great money in all kinds of things in agricultural products.
So
Yep.
With everything that's going on now, how do you guys feel about 2020? I mean, let's I'm real curious. You guys are completely different people. And I would like to actually know what you guys personally
It's
felt
like
about
asking
2020.
Jason. That's just like asking, how do you feel about your ex-girlfriend who stabbed you with a glass shard?
Well, now that we have Charles's perception of 2020, you know, do you guys think it's going to continue into 2021? Like, do you think it's going to get worse? Do you think we're going to start, you know, like, where do you think? I'm curious because, you know, as a crypto enthusiast, and I see what's happening in the markets and what's like really kind of coiling up. You know, we haven't even really seen any kind of altcoin rally yet, just little bips and blips. You know, I'm curious, do you think that will kind of help offset the damage done in 2020 to all of us who have, you know, peered over a bridge and thought, that doesn't look so high? I mean, what do you think's going to happen?
So first, not to brag myself, but I missed the price of Bitcoin by 1 day. I predicted just over 30,000 at year end in January of 2020, right? And it hit that level on the first day after the New Year's, right? But let's go back to the pandemic of 1918, right? And the Roaring 20s, in my view, right? This is not like scientific guys or whatever, some historians telling you this. This is just my idea. The Roaring 20s were a direct result of that pandemic and 150 million people dying all over the world, right? And we just went to that event, the same event after 100 years. And I'm telling you that the entire basically tech stack has moved by 10 years. It's like went into a time machine and jumped 10 years forward. So this mass adoption that we're seeing in crypto is a lot of it has to do with this basically injection of adrenaline that we got from this pandemic. As bad as it is, people are dying all over the world, but definitely something really, really big just happened. And we're just seeing the first few inches of that, not even a few steps, right? So in my view, what just happened, we're just the beginning of this massive digital adoption there's no going back, right? So I'll stop right here.
Yeah, I completely agree. Charles?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a good and a bad. Like World War II led to the creation of rocketry and, you know, all this other really cool technology that started the aerospace industry. And whenever you get rid of an existing power structure or social structure, it creates some anarchy and chaos, but the things that come off after it give you an opportunity to create new things. Like, for example, everybody had to work from home for an entire year. Okay, so that kind of made Zoom a big deal, and it kind of made working at home a big deal. So it's going to fundamentally change the way that we work. And also people are starting to move in mass. Like we're seeing a mass exodus from California to all kinds of other states because people no longer have to go into the office. And they say, why the hell am I in a state with 15% taxes and homeless people trying to kill me? This is a little crazy. Why don't I go and, you know, live in Hawaii, or when I go and live in Arizona or something like that? And so that's always an interesting shakeup. Now, the other thing is that there's a delay from 2020. It's like a ticking time bomb that still has to work its way through. The government turned on the money printers and printed $6 trillion out of thin air. And they did a lot to prop up the economy to try to keep things going. But all these small businesses are devastated. And when they go, that's going to create millions, if not tens of millions of job losses across the US and collectively hundreds of millions across the world. And you don't feel that for another 6 months to 12 months. And so that's coming, and it's going to be very, very tough. There's also a fundamental lack of trust in institutions, and that has been really exacerbated in every dimension. No elections legitimate, no medicine works anymore, no one can believe or trust each other. And so when you see an institutional loss of trust, then usually there's a convergence to alternative assets and ideologies. So there's no coincidence Bitcoin is surging and cryptocurrencies are surging because they're not the mainstream, they're the contrarian view. And you're going to see new religions form. You're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff coming out of this. And you might even see a few governments collapse, but it's going to take years to work its way through. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're not dealing with the hangover for this until 2022, 2023. And Alex is right to bring up the Roaring 20s on the back of the Spanish flu, because you had two big events stacked together. You had World War I and the Spanish flu. Both of those had profound social impacts, and it fundamentally changed the way society worked. And it kind of knocked us out of that, 19th century mindset and viewpoint into a very different one. And that led to, in that case, a huge economic boom and a lot of new things like electrification, for example. I think only 5% of America had electricity, and more than 50% had access to it by the end of the 1920s. It's just profound change in things. And the same with our society. So it's going to be real interesting to see. And, it's kind of exciting and scary at the same time. And I'm glad at least we can contribute something to the positive aspects of it, but it's really depressing. The negative aspects and the psychological trauma that this has had on so many people, especially kids. Mm-hmm. They lost a whole school year. A lot of them lost their senior year of high school and these other things, very formative moments. And we trained all of society for people to fear each other. When I have COVID antibodies, I'm okay, guys. But yet when I walk to my office, I'm kind of in a hippie area of this office, and I don't wear a mask while walking to the office. Everybody looks at me like I'm carrying the plague, and they can't even be close to me or anything like that. So viewing humans as a vector of disease and a threat to you, as opposed to just human beings to say hello to, that has a huge impact as well. And unfortunately, we've inculcated that into too many people in society, and it's going to be tough to work that out. Take a long time.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually just watched a little Twitter video about this girl losing her ever-loving mind on some woman who was not wearing her mask correctly in an elevator. Yeah. Did you see that? I was like, oh my, I mean, she was hysterical, crying and screaming, and
yeah.
I mean, wow. I've already had COVID. A lot of people I know have, and I wear my mask just so other people don't lose their minds. They don't know that I've had it. They don't know that I likely don't have it right now, but people are losing it, man. Everybody's really being, scared. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't want I don't want this interview to get shut down, so I don't want to say anything. But yeah, it has not been fun, and I'm definitely over it. I see Bit Boys in chat. Big psychological impact going forward. Yeah, I think now more than ever, especially for those of us in the cryptocurrency sphere, we're kind of relying, I think, to some degree on this bullish market to really kind of add some positive flavor to what has been just a terrible, terrible year of depression and loss for many out there, and just so much just bad stuff. And I think we're all really looking to you and you, Alex, and Charles, to really change everything. It's all on you.
We're not carrying enough weight on our shoulders already. So just keep pile up.
And I promise I'm done sending Charles naked pictures of myself during this live interview, because he cannot take his eyes off of them. I appreciate it. I'm very flattered, Charles. I'm very flattered. I'm never trusting you with pictures like that again. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I think it's definitely a critical time. I mean, the have-nots. I mean, again, like Charles said, the Fed and the U.S. government put a net under the U.S. economy to try to kind of freeze us in time, and a moment in time, to avoid the collapse. The problem is that this net has giant holes in it, and all the small businesses fell through the net and crashed and burned and went out of business. And the amount of suffering, not just from a medical standpoint and just the fear of the disease, but also people losing their life savings, right? The pizza shop, the restaurant, the hairdresser. I mean, people whose business wasn't big enough to be bailed out by the U.S. government. Mm-hmm. So all that money. I mean, I was saying that this $900 billion that they just authorized, that's equate to over $3,000 per person. So how come we're getting a check for only $600? The rest of it is all pork money. It's all money going to the people who are close to the plate, who just the toll collectors. They take their piece first, and there's nothing left for the American people, for the people who actually are suffering through this, right? So, and we're seeing that again and again. And Washington uses these moments, unfortunately, both the left and the right. It's not only one side, They use these moments to extract all that money from our kids, because basically this 900 billion is a borrowing from the future. We wrote an IOU to our kids are going to pay this money in taxes, and we're spending it today, and most of it is going to companies that don't need this money, right? So crypto, the beauty of the blockchain and decentralization is that it treats everybody equally naturally. It's inherent in the protocol. You don't need to go to Washington and write special laws or whatever. Everybody on the blockchain has the same rights, right? And everything is transparent day one. You don't have to advocate for it. You don't have to fight for it, right? And again, most people don't understand because they're not techies like the three of us, right? Digging into all the algorithms and protocols and everything else. But our job is, all of us, right? Our job is to deliver the utility, not explain to everybody how the blockchain works or what Satoshi did, all that stuff. Just a simple utility.
I believe that the utility of a blockchain is sufficient, or done properly, you should have to do very little explanation as to how it works.
Exactly. It should just work, and it should work 1,000 times better than your bank, who's not your friend, right? Because again, these guys are just toll collectors. They extract from you and they give it to their shareholders. That's all they do.
Right.
ATM fee and no withdrawal fee and no activity fee and fake account fee, right? And you name it, deposit fee, So we are on the cusp of delivering all these services, right? And like the third generation blockchains, like Charles has built. I mean, that's the first time we have a scalable system that it can actually support everybody on the planet, right? And that is the threat to all these banks and all these guys, the fat cats who are used to just making all that money, right? And suddenly the money doesn't come from Washington. Suddenly the money comes from all of us deciding that the value is on this side and on the other side. We don't need your printed dollars or whatever fake currency you created, right? We can basically store all of our value because we know what everybody else is doing and how they transact.
So here's something that I want to I'd like to, those are all great points, and I have a question that definitely brings you both in. When you're talking about crypto adoption, you're talking about utility, you're talking about all of the different things associated with blockchain right now. We're heading into 2021. We see where Cardano is in terms of its development, basically flipping the finger to every naysayer, troll, and tar monster out there. So we know obviously where Cardano is headed. We also know where Ethereum is and what to expect with a lot of the bottlenecking and things. And we get all these promises of ETH 2.0 and what's associated with that. But the overall likelihood that's who knows when that's actually going to happen the way it's been sold instead of these little bits of drip, drip, drip. My question is from a development perspective with you, Alex, knowing what is being done on Cardano, the needs of your app, the Ceslius network app, and I'm asking this on behalf of a lot of other projects out there. This isn't just a selfish thing because, I hold both of you and all of that. That's not really what this is about. But I'm curious to learn from the top end of one of the most successful apps out there right now, obviously, and then one of the developers of one of the biggest blockchains out there, soon to be anyway. How does somebody, whether they're a developer, an application, so forth, how do they look at Cardano through your eyes, Alex? In other words, my question is, when is Ceslius going to be deployed on Cardano? And if it's not, and it's a funny but legitimate question in the sense of, does your application, based off of what you're experiencing through the use and volume and things, are you seeing any slowdown or detriment being on Ethereum that Cardano could potentially resolve? And I guess I'm kind of curious as to the thought process. And I'm asking this because of all of the other applications out there built on Ethereum who might be thinking to themselves, hey, this is something that we're looking into. And you get what I'm saying? You get where I'm going with this? Yeah. I'll stop there.
So look, the first killer app was Bitcoin, right? Just pure store of value. Mm-hmm. And we tried to put all kind of stuff on it and make it do magic and this and that. And where are we after 12 years? We just had the birthday yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. We are at store of value. That's it. It's excellent at that. It does a better job than anything else. Anyone who's trying to squeeze more out of it, to do something else like form of payment or I don't know what is wasting their time. The second phase or the second wave was about, okay, what is the second utility? And the second utility ended up being what Ceslius invented, which was yield, right? We can suddenly create yield on all these assets. So we were the first ones to come to you and say, hey, put your Bitcoin, you get paid in Bitcoin. Put your ETH, you get paid in ETH, and so on. And then we've added, hey, you want to be paid in Cel, you're going to earn even more, right? So this whole idea that you can get paid in a token that has its own life didn't come from Uniswap, didn't come from Compound or anywhere else. It was Cel token was the first one that did that anywhere on the planet. So again, I'm not trying to give myself credit. My point is that was the killer app, right? The killer app was just simple yield. Why? Because your bank doesn't pay you anything. So we replaced the utility that you used to get from your bank, you used to get from your local branch of the central bank, with something that ran independently on the blockchain. So now, again, we're going to a third generation. And the question is it going to be a new killer app, or are we just going to do 1 and 2 much, much better, right? And that's really the big question, the $100 billion question, right? So Charles has huge advantages in being ahead, timing, speed, cost, right? I'm paying for all my customers withdrawal fees. I already paid, just last year, I paid $500,000 in withdrawal fees. When you take money out of Ceslius, I pay the fees. And this is where most of the time Ethereum was at the $100 to $200 dollar level. Now that it's 1,000 level, right? It's over 1,000. It's costing me 5 times as much to pay everybody withdrawal fees. So you're asking me, do I have motivation to switch? Of course, I have a huge motivation to switch, but I need the entire ecosystem to work there as well. And having that virtual machine, being able to basically reuse the same smart contract without having to rewrite everything is a huge advantage. So there's a lot of functionality that is inherent that we can jump on right away. But the big question remains for Cardano. Are you gonna kind of like make the past better, or are you gonna invent something new? Are you gonna create a new killer app that is even better than 1 and 2?
Come play with us, Alex, forever and ever and ever. I did a great video. I highly recommend you guys watch it, called the Island, the Pond, and the Ocean. And this is exactly the thing we've heard a lot from many dApps who are thinking about either migrating or becoming a multi-chain standard. Because at the end of the day, I mean, Alex is here to innovate. I mean, who cares if it's Ethereum, it's EOS, or it's Tezos? We're infrastructure. Our job is to provide a collection of services, just like Amazon Web Services provides you when you host an application. But at the end of the day, his job is make his customers happy and to make that app great and provide utility within their philosophy. So what we've done for migration is we've done kind of a collection of 3 things. One, we have the Erc20 Converter. So if you have a token on Ethereum, we try to give you white glove treatment on how to move that token over from Ethereum to Cardano in the easiest possible way and in the most automated possible way. 2, we're going to fully support the Ethereum virtual machine. So we have the dev nets running, and if you want to run your Solidity code and use your Solidity tooling and all that stuff, you can. And so 1-to-1, it's just going to work, and it'll be a lot better, faster, and cheaper, probably 100 times or 1,000 times cheaper than Ethereum. So we'll discover that during the DevNet phase, but we just launched that in December, and you know, that's already there. And you know, if you guys want to explore that and play around with it, we're ready to go. And 3, what we try to do is get an understanding of what your app is going to need, not today, but in the future. So as you go from 100,000 users to 1 million users to 1 billion users, or you know, whatever your roadmap happens to be, there are going to be things in your roadmap that none of these platforms currently support, and you're going to need bespoke service and support infrastructure to get there. And we try to accommodate. Like, one thing we've noticed almost everybody in the DeFi space is talking about right now is identity, because FinCEN is just getting so much more aggressive on KYC and AML, as is the U.S. Treasury Department General, as is the FATF. So it's no longer good enough to just have all these naked accounts. People need to have some notion of, hey, they're KYC'd, or hey, you're doing business with counterparties who aren't on sanction lists, or you know, these types of things. Well, we built Prism for that. So we have this great layer 2 solution that has DIDs, and you can have authenticated addresses, and you can embed identity into transactions and have whatever KYC scheme you want. You can even do encrypted DIDs, so it's private on the blockchain, but certain people can decrypt those DIDs to verify who has ownership or custody. So these are the kinds of layer 2 solutions that we try to work our way on. The other is governance. Right after MakerDAO got a class action lawsuit when Ethereum collapsed in I think it was March or April of last year when the markets went down. All of a sudden, the MakerDAO guys were like, "Man, we really should accelerate this whole DAO thing. We don't like liability. We don't like getting sued." Well, wouldn't it be great if you had a whole voting system? Had a whole voting stack, and it's really easy for your token holders to decide the direction and progress of the product, or perhaps you want a treasury system or these types of things. Well, all of the governance tools we built for Cardano are reusable for Cardano native assets. So when you issue an asset on Cardano, you get access to not just a great network that's low cost and has a lot of capabilities. Anything that ADA works on, your token works on, because you're treated as a first-class citizen. Now, eventually, for larger tokens, what that'll also mean is you can pay transaction fees in your token, not in ADA, but in your token. So that'll be on the roadmap in the coming months and years. But that's an example of things we think is really important, because at the end of the day, it's like you're not really your own token if you have to pay some other token every time a transaction occurs. It kind of creates this weird business model. It'd be nice that you be your own currency in that respect. So it's a complex conversation, and usually it's a game of iterations where they kind of get to know. It's like dating. They kind of get to know you. You talk for a while, say, hey, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can go to the park, and then you get the boat ride, and then at some point you get laid. So similarly, it takes a little while to go through that entire process, but we find that once people get into the ecosystem, they love it so much, they love the support, they love the fact people care and actually want them to be successful, that in general it works. So, we're here to answer any questions, and we'd love to see a migration that make me super happy. But in any event, it's just, it's just good to know everybody, be friends with everybody, and also try to be competitive and try to push everybody in the right direction. Because no matter who wins, I'd like to see these services exist. I signed up to see DeFi impact all of finance for all people, and we're not going to get anywhere unless we have peer-to-peer insurance and peer-to-peer lending and a different way of representing property. And we do so where you own that, the user, not some platform or some individual bank or something like that. No, we really need self-sovereign stuff. We need people to be in charge of their own money and autonomy.
Yeah, I agree with everything was said. Not on the dating part, just on the other part. Just kidding. But the point is that all this experimentation that's happening on DeFi, on Ethereum today, you can see the regulators all over the world basically saying, we're not going to just let you run and do all this stuff, right? And they're pulling, kind of like the bear hug is tightening every second with more and more regulation and more requirements. Now, again, we chose to be full KYC, full AML from day one. We filed with the SEC, we filed with FinCEN. It's obviously much harder to grow that way than it is to just allow anybody to come in and do whatever they want. And it's fine to experiment, right? But we are very quickly, 2021 is going to be all about kind of like distilling it down to, okay, here is the legal way of doing it. And then it's all going to be about scale, right? Because today, I don't know, 14, 15 billion worth of assets in DeFi. We have 5 billion out of that. That's nothing. Like in the context of trillions of dollars that are floating every day just in the FX markets, we are just the beginning of the road. Like the banks, these guys that we're making fun of, they don't even think of us as real competition. They look at us as like, who are these guys? What do they think they have? They got nothing. So our job is to prove that we can be an inclusive community. And I always make this point that this is not about winning against the bank. It's about us being such a good alternative that everybody, just like everybody left AT&T and stopped using them for long distance or for other services, right? Everybody's just going to leave the bank because why would you use a bank? If somebody pays you 20, 30, 50 times in interest, gives you much faster and cheaper loans, and handles all of your finances in real time with no fees and so on. So that's where we headed, with customers just leaving the banks and going towards decentralized services that are fully compliant and provide everything in a way that the government says, yeah, the customers are protected. So we still have gaps to close there, but if we can provide a scalable solution, you're going to see that mass migration. I'm talking about hundreds of millions of people coming in just a few years, and the fuse was lit. Okay, the fuse was already lit with the recession, with this COVID thing, and now it's accelerating every day. Just in the last 2 weeks, we've seen our registrations go up 400%. Okay, it just went like this. Okay, and we're already growing faster than anybody, right? So I mean, it just, you can see that. I can see it every day. It's just accelerating.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you have to be able to manage the growth, and that's usually the hardest part of all this. A lot of these DeFi applications, they're built in a way where they're really good proofs of concept. But the problem with any time you're an entrepreneur and you develop is that you outgrow that proof of concept very rapidly, but yet you're expected to not only maintain a perfect service, but then get that service to meet the needs of your next user set. And I think that's what's happened with Ethereum. I mean, you look at the ridiculous fees that they have and all the pains. Well, they're victims of their own success, and they're desperately trying to accommodate the next generation, but they didn't really plan it. So, F2 is just a nightmare in terms of getting it out. And they're also trying to do too much at once, sharding and all this other stuff. It's super hard to solve any one of these problems. And other people who understood a little bit more about computer science, a little bit more about how to actually build things like Gavin did with Polkadot or what we did with Cardano, we all chose kind of a hybrid, much more realistic approach to bringing these things down. And then saying, hey, if it's good enough for this generation of where they want to grow and what they want to do and the problems they're encountering, that's great, because then it gives us a few more years to actually get to an even bigger level. But it's hard to get all those details right. Market fit is also another thing. I've invested enormous amounts of resources, millions of dollars, into developing out Africa, because that's really the marketplace that desperately needs DeFi. When you look at America and Europe, we'd like to replace the banks, we'd like to replace the insurance company, but they have this magic superpower that's very difficult to get around. It's called regulation. And what they'll do is when they notice that somebody's encroaching on their business model, they'll hit you over the head with as big of a regulatory club as they can. And you kind of live in this gray area for a while, and it's really hard. And eventually you have to grow large enough to hire your own lobbyists. And then it's like the battle of, whoever has the bigger bribe to the politician. Or you go to the Africa, it's like the government literally comes to you and says, we're upgrading our system and we desperately need our own way of doing things. And we're completely okay with a cryptocurrency. We're completely okay with all this DeFi innovation. So they have different problems, corruption and infrastructure problems and so forth, but they're willing to work with you. It's not regulation that actually knocks you out of the marketplace. So one of the unique advantages of Cardano is our goal is to onboard millions, eventually tens of millions of people in these jurisdictions. So when you're a DeFi provider, you say, well, who are my customers? Where am I going to get the next 5 million, the next 5 million, especially as I broaden out to bigger product lines like insurance and these other things. And so as you start losing market access in the Western world, this might be a customer base that actually compensates and eventually is far more valuable. You talk about FS markets being trillions of dollars. Africa alone has $5.6 trillion of liquid wealth that's just locked up. It'd be great to create liquidity there, create yield there, and all kinds of things. And there's some incredibly valuable product lines that exist, but they just can't get access to global markets. And so they need something like DeFi to quantify and qualify that, bring it
to
out.
add to that, on top of the technical side, you also have to protect the customer, meaning, unfortunately, naked or pure DeFi. Look at March 12, right? March 12, Bitcoin goes down 40% in 12 hours. Ethereum goes down 50% in 12 hours. And over $1 billion worth of DeFi gets liquidated just in a few minutes, right? On Maker, on Compound, and so on, because there's no protections. There's nothing, right? People who didn't have a clue what they were doing, they were going on margin. They thought everything was wonderful. They just entered into these smart contracts and they thought that what could happen? No, you could liquidate and pay 16% liquidation fee and end up owing money that you don't even have. So we cannot invite all these people, these hundreds of millions of people that Charles is talking about, and then just slap them across the face, liquidate them, shred them down the grinder, and say, okay, next, because that's what we're doing, right? Every time an event like this happens, you lose millions of people that could have been your customers for life. So what we've done is put these protections right in the basically the protocols to prevent people from taking the risk that they don't even understand they're taking, right? They're greedy, they want to make some money, they're whatever, but you got to not just build the infrastructure and scalability, but you also got to put the guardrails for all of these newbies coming in, not to blow themselves, because the goal is financial independence, financial freedom, not becoming the richest guy in the world, right? So lifting all these hundreds of millions of people out of poverty by just having them earn real yield, having their money work for them, and so on. So it's both the tech stack and the business stack that has to work together. And you have to act in the best interest of the depositor, of the person who's actually coming in and putting that value on your blockchain. You have to protect them, right? Where today, every exchange or every DeFi platform is neutral. We don't care if it's the borrower or the lender or the buyer or the seller. Ceslius is not neutral. We only represent the depositor, right? That's it. My job is to extract as much as possible out of the institution, out of the exchange, out of whoever the borrower is, always representing the depositor, right? So, and that is intended that way because that's the only way you scale in this environment where it's a Wild West.
And a lot of people are afraid to build in consumer protections for their application because at some point there's usually a human that has to make a decision, and whoever that is a regulatory target. You see, this is one of those perverse problems with regulation where it's intended to create consumer protection, but in the effort to do that, because of intended or unintended, it creates this gap, and whoever is responsible for trying to take care of people or doing the right thing, they end up basically being swept into something and then now require a license or inadvertently regulated in a particular way that's counterproductive to the entire network. Especially when you start talking about things like custodial risk or things like, well, if the blockchain is doing that, well, why do you need these licenses or these things? It's like, so that stuff tends to come up, and it's one of those unfortunate things. And in the developing world, we can fix that because we can custom tailor and build bespoke regulation, which acknowledges where a human has to be involved, where an algorithm can be involved, and make sure that the licenses are right-sided so you're protecting the customer. In the developed world, unfortunately, it's incredibly hard to do that. We did some of it in Wyoming, for example, where we got a lot of laws changed. We created even special banks, and the whole fucking United States worked against us on that. I mean, we had states suing over what Wyoming was doing with its banking licenses. I mean, heaven's sake, it's the craziest thing. We might have to go to the Supreme Court.
But you forced the hand of the OCC. The OCC eventually had to, because Wyoming issued those licenses, the OCC said, no, okay, now everybody across the country has to operate under the same rules.
And so honor it, create.
I know, no, it was great. I mean, that was amazing. So that was one of the very few times where a state, by basically leapfrogging forward, has caused everybody else to line up, move the line, right? Towards people and towards having more transparency and more accountability and acting on behalf of the customer and not the other way, right? Normally,
because ranchers hate bankers.
So no, but I'll give you another example. In most of the United States, for example, you need a license to lend, and if you read the license carefully, it doesn't say that everybody needs a license. It says if you, for example, in New York State, if you charge over 15% in interest, you need a license. Well, guess what? There is no bank in New York that charges less than 15% on your credit card, right? So Ceslius doesn't need a license in New York State because we charge 1% on our loans. So in most states, you do have protections for the consumers against people who egregiously steal from you, right? But when you do the right thing, the regulators look at you and say, you're a good guy, go ahead, do everything you're doing, right? So I don't think DeFi, like there's this notion that you cannot do crypto or DeFi and be compliant. And I can tell you, Ceslius is 100% compliant, and we did that by following all the rules, because it's not that all the regulation is bad, right? Again, KYC/AML is not a bad thing. It protects our community. against bad actors. It's a good thing for Celsius, it's not a bad thing. Yes, it requires everybody to put their license and all this extra work, and we have to monitor activity and all this other stuff, but we see that as a benefit, not as additional risk, right? And so I'm definitely in the minority here, but I think that having just enough regulation and using the existing regulation is a good thing for crypto, is a good thing for, again, the third generation where you're actually going to need to scale. And I rather rely on the existing regulation than have the guys in Washington invent new regulation for crypto, because that's definitely not going to end up good for us, right? So, and here we are. There's a new administration. They're going to have their own people. Who knows what they're going to decide, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to automate as much regulation as possible. It's kind of silly that, like the Howey test, for example, of what's a security, what's not. Came from the 1940s. Come on, guys. We were in a different place in the world during the 1940s than we are today. And we live with financial stem cells. We don't have these nice buckets where everything is well decided. You don't have like the heart cell and the nerve cell and the lung tissue. You don't have the security, the commodity, the currency. A cryptocurrency can be all of the above. It just depends on the facts and circumstances and how it's used and, that day of the week and the people behind it. So given that you now have so much more flexibility, what you need is to have programmatic regulation. The other thing is we're a global economy, and it's just not possible to be compliant. We operate in 40 countries. At some point, somewhere, I probably pissed off a regulator in Senegal. It happened. It's because the reality is, if you comply with one, sometimes you're out of compliance with the other, just by the contradictory nature of these things. So you need to be able to bake into the application or the transaction a localization function, so that as it goes from one system to another system, it's almost like calling libraries. It can basically adhere to the laws that are relevant to the people who are touching it and to the facts and circumstances behind that transaction. So, from one lens, it's frustrating regulation. From another lens, we're right about to have a regulatory renaissance that solves a long-standing financial problem that all regulators are suffering, which is, how do you implement financial regulation in a global transnational economy where no one nation is in control? Well, great. Don't put anybody in control. Instead, what you do is you treat it like, libraries, and you basically import them and use them based on who's touching the transaction, what you're doing with it, and the type of application that's there. And then you have some common themes along the way. You don't know exactly what data the government is going to care about, but you do know that you need to collect some of it. Okay, so create a provision for that, and then you can localize it to the needs there. And the point of Cardano is we kind of thought about this really carefully. We engaged early on with governments like Wyoming, Switzerland, all these places. I know so many damn prime ministers at this point. In a lot of cases, governments are our customers, like the government of Georgia and the government of Ethiopia. So it puts us in a really good position to kind of talk around, well, what do you need? And if we were to start turning your laws from paper laws into code and algorithmic law, and kind of like an open law notion, what would that look like, and how do we automate as much as possible? Then how much of that stack can we build at the network level, so that when a dApp developer comes in, they can just plug into a standard and then suddenly they're in compliance, and they don't have to go and hire Perkins Coie and spend $600 an hour and have like 5 of these guys sitting in a conference room to tell them it depends. Right, them a more likely and not opinion, but who cares, because they can just change their mind. We live in a dreary state in that respect, and that's the old way of doing things.
When we're done with the bankers, we can then go off to the lawyers. But
oh God, yeah, I want to get rid of all of this
first. But look, I agree with your point. I think that the regulation, the United States cannot regulate and squash innovation in the United States. All that's going to happen is that all the breast brains and everybody's just going to go and work out of China or some other country where they're allowing them to do the same thing, right? So we invented this whole thing, right? We scaled this whole thing, and now we're just gonna give it away, right? So you can already see, like CBDCs, right? The Chinese bank, central bank, and others are trying to create the global standard ahead of the United States, and so we definitely. Yes, we need some regulation, but at the same time, we need to allow this Cambrian explosion of innovation to continue, right? And hope that Again, we can retrain. 20 million people lost their jobs. Okay, well, let's invest in that. Let's put them into machine learning. Let's put them into artificial intelligence. Let's put them into the blockchain, right? Spend money on that instead of bailing out the casinos and the airlines and the cruise companies and the past, right? Why are we bailing out the past? Or
no, Alex, we need to study the transgender frogs in Alabama. It is an absolute necessity
yeah,
for our
right.
budget.
Well, that's where $2,400 of every $3,000 issued by the government went to all kind of pet projects.
Yes.
That have nothing to do with us taking America into, into the future. It's more like dragging us into the past. So here we are.
Here we are. That's for damn sure.
Jason's out of words. That's it. He's shocked.
No,
by...
I tried for like 10 minutes to get the wheel, moving, and then I just wanted to get out of the way. So, but this was good stuff, and I actually quite happy with the little bit of a conversation that I spawned there. Obviously I'm extremely bullish on not just both your projects, but both of you. And you're both so busy, and obviously, the fact that you made the time to come out and do this tonight's actually, I'm very grateful. I appreciate both of you very much, and I'm extremely excited about what the future of 2021 holds for both of you. Hopefully together more and more. I'm of course waiting for Goguen, like the rest of the world, so that I can, I have plans of my own. And here's the thing: when I asked you that question, Alex, about putting Ceslius on the app, I didn't even realize, it never even occurred to me that you're paying everybody's withdrawal fees. So you might go bankrupt over the 2021, depending on how high.
I think it's $2.5 million a year at the current market price.
Yes, it just went 5x.
Yeah,
and we're adding customers so quickly that it's going to be much bigger number. So it's that. Look, we want all these fees that I'm paying Ethereum should have went to my customers as more yield. Right. So instead of me raising the yield on all these coins, I have to give it up as another toll collector. So and there's no reason. There's no, like a transaction on Ethereum is $20 or $30. I mean, this is crazy.
Right.
It's like we live in an electronic world where it costs nothing. It costs literally nothing, a fraction of a penny, to do a transaction that has, how many validators you have? Like 1,300 or something?
Yeah.
So all of those validators getting paid is less than a penny per transaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
I'm very underpaid, Charles. Did you hear what he said?
so the
volume game, Jason. The volume game.
We have beautiful volume, and we did over $10 billion in loans, right, in 2 years. I mean, we've paid over 200 million in interest to our community. I mean, and it could be 10 times or 100 times bigger. So that's a beautiful application for Cardano, right? So we just need to make sure that everybody can run on that. Again, our ERC20, our token, right? Cell token is an ERC20. It runs on Ethereum. Maybe we run it on 2 chains. I mean, it doesn't have to run only 1 chain. So I think this, again, the multi-chain implementation is just, the internet is a multi-chain implementation, right? I mean, what is the internet? It's just a collection of chains. Just instead of blockchains, these are computer chains, So we know how it scales. We know how it works. I mean, I was there at the beginning of the internet. I remember what's the Ethernet inventor? What's his name again? Gosh, I blacked out.
The Ethernet inventor.
Ethernet, yeah. So he in '95.
Steven Ethernet. That was his name.
No,
Steve Ethernet.
In '95, he came out with this like big things saying the internet is going to fail. TCP/IP is not going to scale. It's never going to work. The whole thing is going to, and he ended up eating his head. And the guy invented the Ethernet, and obviously, so my point is that there's a lot of skeptics. Actually, the most knowledgeable people are sometimes the biggest skeptics because they know too much, and they don't allow their brain to go and explore. So we need some of these killer apps on Cardano. That's what we need, right? It's not about 1,000 applications. It's about 2 applications that just take over the world.
Right.
Right.
Exactly why we're here.
I did voice of IP in 95. I can tell you we had 100%. Anyone who saw it immediately adopted and said, I'm not paying AT&T anymore, $2 a minute. Here it is for free on my computer. Mm-hmm. So that's what you need, that kind of like instant adoption, right? You see it and you never go back. You never want to use the old system.
Robert Metcalf.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, that was Xerox PARC, right, in the 1970s?
Yeah, he was... Yeah,
and that was, if memory serves, it was Aloha Net or something like that was the original version, and then there was like 4 or 5 guys that were on the patent application.
Yeah, so he's they replaced basically the token ring network from IBM or whatever, and they created this new protocol, right? The Ethernet protocol, which we still use today.
Right.
But my point is that this is a guy who was like at the core of the internet back in the day, telling you the internet is not going to scale. So you have a lot of naysayers today who are telling you, this all this validator stuff, this proof of stake, all that stuff, that's never going to happen. Okay, we're sticking with proof of work. No, there isn't enough electricity on the planet to service everybody on proof of work. Okay, like there's probably not enough electrons in the universe to service everybody. So we know that is not a scalable solution. We know that we technologically have to migrate, and again, we have to have one leg in the old world, and we have to have one leg in the new world. And eventually, when we scale, we can move both legs into the decentralized world. Right? That's how we are looking at it. Right? So for us, again, innovation, experimentation. If we can't scale on Ethereum, of course we're going to migrate somewhere else.
Absolutely, you are, because I'm going to poke and prod and push and cry and just, yeah. And next time I see you in person, I'm going to tackle you like a linebacker and say, when's it happening, Alex? No, here's the thing, realistically.
Charles made it easy. Listen,
he did make it easy.
The EVM is like built in. You just, again, migrate your smart contracts. Everything is hopefully, we got to test all of that, but if it works the way it's we have it in the test lab and stuff, but we got to put it in the real world and make sure that it works. And I'm sure there's going to be bugs and stuff, but we'll work through it. So it's not we're excited. It's definitely a scalable solution. If we don't have it, we're dead. We cannot scale with the system we have today, right? It just, sometimes it takes a few hours for enough confirmations to come through.
Right.
It's just crazy.
It is crazy. And I look at, obviously having watched everybody's projects for years now as they've developed over time and read so much of this boring stuff that I think only Charles could really understand at this point. I try to take so much of this stuff in, and I am very much interested in building an ecosystem on the blockchain that I can live through. It's not just about you've got your banking, and it's like this whole unbank yourself thing and everything that you're trying to accomplish. Cardano's already kind of pushing through a lot of those territories and markets that would help you facilitate your growth. And then I think about social media, and it's like, I've been pushing you both. I want to get you both in with SoMe, because I'm a big proponent of SoMe, and I want my social media platform. I want my DeFi platform on a blockchain that I believe in and trust, that makes it easy.
It's tip of the spear. You got to take one thing and drive it.
I'm just driving it through everybody like a shish kebab, and then once all is said and done, I'm gonna have everything I want in one little happy place. Look, and then I can retire.
I don't want to say I told you so, but in 2017 I told you it's all about yield. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you right now, it's all about yield. You want to win over the entire financial network, it's all about yield. You don't need 10 other applications. You don't need social media, and you don't need reinvent streaming, and you don't need any of that. If you just deliver yield for people, okay, and you deliver it on a network that can scale to billions of users, that's it. You just killed the entire financial system. You just killed it. It disappears because there is no central bank in the world that can afford to pay interest today. Nothing. Why all the rates are down to zero or negative, right? So we have 30 years now, 30 years of a unique, sustainable competitive advantage where we can pay yield and they cannot pay yield. So how many customers do you think they're going to keep? Again, AT&T charges you $2 a minute to call your family overseas, and we charge you nothing, right? you're not going to stay with AT&T. You're not going to stay with your bank. It's that simple. You try to shove 10 projects through the scaling problems. I mean, Charles has so much more work to do. I'm sure when we just crank it up, we're going to start seeing sparks flying off because we haven't cranked it up yet. And we're going to have to solve all of that and scale and everything else. So
we're good with cranks. We can take care of it.
No, but I went through it with Voice of IP. I mean, you think everything worked? I mean, look, it still doesn't work. Like sometimes you do a session like this one, and it just suddenly we lose somebody's picture, or the voice starts separating from the video.
Yeah, but that's not a protocol problem. That's an infrastructure problem.
No, well, this is a hot potato problem because basically a lot of the carriers, they see it's VoIP, they don't get paid for VoIP, right? So they just throw it off the network, and then instead of 3 hops, you have 23 hops. So, but anyway, the point is that on the blockchain, we have a unique opportunity. We are in a unique situation where all of our competitors, the central banks and the banks, are tied up in a straitjacket. There's nothing they can do. They cannot react. They cannot raise rates. They cannot do anything. And we can do everything because we generate our own yield. We don't rely on the bank or the central bank for yield. If there's 7.75 billion people on the planet, every one of them, if you ask them, hey, do you want to earn more money on your money? Every one of them will raise his hand and say, sure, what do I need to do? Here, just move your money over there, right? That's it. That's all you need to do.
All right, Jason, we need to make a song with Weird Al. It's all about the yield, baby.
Yeah, here we go.
We'll do it to WAP. We'll do it to that beat.
Now you finally, at the end of the show, you got him going. You know, like, in the beginning, I was like, what?
We've got to talk about massaging cows or WAP to get Charles really rocking.
Oh, yeah, you got me going, man.
Charles, I gotta ask because it's what I see everywhere. Like, when Coinbase is it?
Fuck
coming?
you!
Is that coming someday? Ever? Is that ever happening?
It's like this 17-year-old guy who wants to get laid and keeps harassing his girlfriend. Like, stop it! She'll do it when she's ready.
Oh, I know. Every time I even mention Cardano, Jason, it's the same. Yes, I had to do it.
I mean, we did everything on our side that we can do. I think Coinbase's decision.
Coinbase is more lawyers than programmers. That's the problem. So if they had more programmers, then you wouldn't have this problem.
There's a lot of problems. You got the S1 filing, you got the New York Times thing, the recent attritions because of that one article that came out. You got the XRP issue and the lawsuits there. They're a busy company. They got like 1,000 people. There's a lot of shit on their plate. Let them do their stuff. You know, they call me if they need something. I took care of everything they needed. Like, don't worry, everything's okay.
Do you hear that, everybody? All 1,846 of you. That's all you're gonna get. They bug me.
That's all you're gonna get. It's all you're gonna get. I'm gonna say nothing. You know, like it'll come if it comes in its own time and its own place, and it'll be magical and special. Look, candlelight dinner and everything.
Let me make a case for Charles here, okay? Ceslius did not list on a single exchange. We are number 16 now, 17 top coin or a token, okay? We are still not on Coinbase or Binance or any major exchange. When you have the community and when you have a killer app, you don't need all that shit, okay? You don't need it. So if we just get going,
hang on. We're on Kraken, we're on Binance,
I know.
We're everywhere. It's
like plenty. You got much more. My point to Jason is that you don't need Coinbase to get your price to new highs.
No, it's not even about that. I just want my mom to be able to buy it without having to transfer it 3 different places. That's her thing. And that's ultimately why everybody wants Coinbase, because they know that's where our grandmothers are, because it's the only
all right, Jason, to make you feel better, we'll institute the Leroy program. We'll have a guy in a trench coat named Leroy meet your mother in the alleyway with a brown paper bag.
I would pay for that. My mom would love that.
Yeah, there we go.
True. And she's probably watching this. So, hi, Mom. We're going to get you kidnapped by a guy in a paper bag.
We're going to wrap Cardano and put it on Uniswap. And this way she can buy it right on Uniswap. How about that? That's how much it costs.
It'll cost you $5 for the ADA.
I know. $500 for the you'll buy $10, it will cost you $30.
Wow.
Exactly. So, but that's what these people are paying every day, but they have no clue. They cannot see the transaction cost. They have no clue. They pay on Coinbase, they'll pay 7% for the credit card fee. And in Uniswap, they'll pay 30, and they'll be the trashing Coinbase saying, oh, those guys are so bad. No, you just paid 5 times as much on the Ethereum network, like so. And again, all that is hidden. Like you can't see it unless you know exactly, what you're doing, and you know how to go in on Etherscan and look at your fees and convert that into dollars. You have no clue what it costs.
Are you trying to say Ethereum has hidden fees, Alex? Are you trying to make that
I'm
statement?
paying them. I mean, and so look, DeFi today is between 70 and 80% of Ethereum's volume.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't, Charles, please, you don't need 10 solutions. Don't listen to anybody else. You just need to take this one application, and if you put your mind to it and you scale it on Cardano, that's it. You just pass the moon on your way to Alpha Centauri. You're like, boom, you're out of even the solar system. Okay, so you don't need 10 things. You just need one killer app. Okay, and the killer app is Yield. Happy to work with you on it. All right.
Amen. All right.
And by the way, Alex told me this years ago. We were in Zurich at, I think it was Real World Crypto, or it was one of the conferences.
I don't even recall the name. I don't recall even the name of the event, but yeah.
Yeah, we were there, and he said, Charles, it was like The Graduate, where like, I just have one word for you, plastics. He's, I have one word for you. It's yield. And he was right.
Saying the same thing for 5 years, and no one is listening. What I love is how
people are listening, Alex, because I've watched the Ceslius network token price shoot through the roof in a short period of time. Everybody's listening, brother. But go ahead.
Well, he's got $25,000 a night hotel rooms to pay for, Jason. Something has to happen. Yield has to be profitable.
Yeah, no, but look, we called it MOIT, money over IP. I thought that was a much more appropriate kind of slogan, and everybody else went and said, no, we're going to call it DeFi, right? Again, DeFi is great for speculators. It's great for people who don't have a job and they're happy to be on the computer screen 24 hours a day, doing farming and all kind of other stuff. The average person has a family, they have responsibilities, they have a job, right? They can't be doing all this crap, right? And DeFi is just not going to scale the way it's designed. It's just not going to work,
right?
Both because of regulatory and because of the way it's designed for the speculators. So like what we're focused on is just delivering the yield. You don't have to do anything, right? You just deposit and you earn yield that is 100 times more than your bank. And now if we can make it 100 times faster and avoid all the fees, then we will pay even more to the depositor. That's all I want to do. I'm the largest depositor in Ceslius. I have over $200 million of my own money there, right? Right next to your money, right next to your Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin and every other coin, right? So I'm acting in my own best interest. It's not like I have some secret plan and I'm trying to get you on something or whatever. No, I'm earning crazy yield. Come sit next to me on the bus, earn the same yield. If I can run it 100 times faster at 1,000th of the cost, that means me and all the other riders on the bus earn more. So you don't have to convince me. I'm like, I can't wait for this to happen, right? Good. We just need to, again, Shelly's out. The EVM is out. Great. Let's take a few smart contracts. Let's see how they propagate. And we can do it with every blockchain. I mean, we can run every block. We can basically tokenize every blockchain.
Just stop at Cardano, Alex. You were doing great.
No, I'm talking about running it on Cardano. You can tokenize Bitcoin on Cardano and run it as a virtual coin. I mean, that's what Ethereum is doing with Wrap BTC. Mm-hmm. But you can run it at 1,000 times the speed, right? So you don't have to convince me, right? I mean, what we need is, we need to put a bunch of engineers in the room, and we got to deliver code. Talking about it like blah 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 doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
I'm just here to plant the seed, brothers, for you brainiacs to figure it out.
No, you're here for the wrapped ass Bitcoin, Jason.
Yes, that's right. Wrapped ass Bitcoin.
And the viewers are here for the dating lessons, right? That's
there we go. Don't take any relationship advice from either of us.
Yeah, don't ask me about dating advice. I've been married for 10 years now. I don't even remember what dating was like. I don't even know anything about it anymore. Dating.
Yes.
Get on Tinder and
Exactly.
swipe until somebody shows up at your house. I think that's what it's like nowadays.
Yeah. Not in COVID. I don't think that even works. In
Yeah,
COVID.
no. Yeah, you have to get verified on Cardano for, when is Tinder going to end up? That's the thing. There's so many apps that I'm going to end up seeing. I am super excited. I can't wait to see a new version of Tinder that's run on Cardano.
Cardano, no, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't think so.
I'm totally kidding, but we're gonna see so much crazy stuff.
Yeah, you're totally not kidding, Jason.
Probably. Hey, if I could
He's
earn some
already
ADA
writing
for
the business
swiping,
plan.
that'd be great.
while we were talking about the future, he was already writing the business plan for
Absolutely, I've got
Tinder
like
or
10.
Cardano,
I'm
Yeah.
just waiting to submit all my ideas to Cardano so I can win some funding and build one of them. No, I'm kidding.
Well, anyway, Alex, Jerry Fragascatos will send you guys an email. He's our chief commercial officer, and we have a whole professional services group, and they do nothing but solutions engineering. And so anything you guys need, and from testing a version of Ceslius on our DevNets to, just supporting Cardano in your network,
Yep.
we're here to help, and we'll definitely take
Well,
care
we got
of
to
that.
spin a node like Jason. We got to spin a node. Put it right now. We're using Fireblocks or Prime Trust, so we got to put on one of those custodians, and then that's it. And then we're in the game. So I just gotta dedicate some resources, and then we got to think about how do you create all these synthetic versions of all these other coins. Imagine again all the coins running on your chain, right? We have financial use for that, and as long as we can create the representations. No one's going to trade it on Ethereum if I'm doing it with no fees, right?
Yeah. So it's definitely something we'll discuss, and we have a whole team of people that do nothing but this for a living. And Crow, thank you so much for setting all this up. Alex, it's always great to talk to you. We don't do it enough.
It's definitely been a long time since Zurich.
Yeah.
So we're definitely, Jason, thanks for putting it together.
Absolutely, anytime.
And we'll do a reunion when we launch the first app, the first version. How about that?
Great.
There we go. That sounds like a plan. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, show your support for these guys. All I'm going to say is I hope we're going to the moon soon. Until next time, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Charles. Love you both. Really appreciate you and all of you the time. And I'm just going to go back and watch this over again with a big fat chaw so I can enjoy the rest of my evening. Peace out. See you when you're grown.